they overperform, they do better than they were meant to. These are people who are not necessarily high on ability, very high on attitude. Organizations need to be like that. Doesn't mean they should be low on ability, but try and get the maximum out of what they have. I'll play a little clip, and the reason I turned that back very quickly was I want to tell you a little line before that. Our attitudes, which in the end determine who we are going to be, are determined by the kind of goals we set. And very often the kind of goals we set tell us about the kind of person we are. I mean, if you're doing 5 feet in the high jump, which some of us have done at some time in life, 5 feet or 4 feet 2 maybe, and if your attitude is next time I want to jump 4 feet 4, then I suspect you're going to be a 4 foot 4 jumper all your life. I don't think anyone told Sergei Bubka he could jump, he could go over 6 meters. But it was the attitude, just kept telling himself, I can go over 6 meters. And that's why I'm going to play this little clip from Rahul Dravid, who we saw very briefly, about what kind of goals he likes to set. Because I suspect here's another person who's grossly overperforming. God gave him X and he's desperately overperforming. And it's interesting to see what he believes about goals.
You must always, I think it's very important to explore how far you can reach. I mean, I think that's what it's all about really. It's pushing yourself to the limit really, to know exactly what you can achieve and trying to achieve, never being satisfied, always trying to go that one step better, and you keep progressing, because you really don't know how much, what is your limit. Sometimes you might undersell yourself, but I think it's more important I think it's better to fall short by I personally feel, by setting very high standards than by setting very low standards and achieving them, and then later on thinking that I could have done much better.
How often does it happen to us? It's much better, he says, in his view, to set high goals and maybe fall a little short in trying to achieve those high goals, then set yourself smaller ones and then say, you know what, I could have done better. It's called the bargain syndrome. When you go to bargain, you always think you've lost, right? Because you always think you could have done a little bit more, you could have brought that person down a little bit more. Because in a bargain, the person who's selling always wins. Let's be very honest about that. I suspect most of you have been involved in negotiations as well. But when you're driving people down, you always think, shit, I could have got a little bit more out of that. Do we want to set goals when we tell ourselves, you know what, I could have got a little bit more out of that? Or are we saying, let me try and reach that summit. Let me make that my goal. But in getting there, if I fall a little bit short, well, too bad, but at least I tried to get there. And I think you'll find that a lot of top performers even in this room. You set your targets a little higher, your goals are a little higher all the time. Big issue, interdependence, teams, playing each other. Is this a room of Lone Rangers or is this a room of team players? The Lone Ranger exists only in fiction, in the movies. You watch Sylvester Stallone movies? It doesn't seem to matter if there's an army of 8,000 against it, but he's going to knock all of them, right? Great script to write. Life, unfortunately, hardly ever writes scripts like those. It'd be fantastic if life wrote those kind of scripts for us, but life doesn't. Steven Seagal movies, have you seen those? He's beating people up in kitchens all the time. I've never figured that one out. Why does he beat people up in kitchens? Sunny Deol, we've got an Indian actor, Sunny Deol. In Sunny Deol's movies, nothing ever happens to him. Wouldn't that be great in banking? And I'm taking you on, guys. HSBC, Citibank, all you guys, move off, man, I'm coming. Won't work. If it need to be hired by HSBC straight away. The Lone Ranger exists only in fiction. I mean, if you've got a sportsman who says, you know what, I'm going to win this match for us guys, then you're in trouble. And I remember when Australia came to India in '98 and they were struggling, and Mark Taylor said in an interview afterwards that Shane Warne came up to him and said, you know what, on these tracks, I have to win it for Australia. And he said, if that's what you think, then you might as well go home, because if one man is going to win it for us, then we're not good enough as a team. It was an outstanding leader of men. It was Mark Taylor. Lone Ranger exists only in fiction. Interdependence is everything in a team sport. Because setting up a goal is as important as scoring it. You see that in football all the time? I mean, you can have this midfielder, this fullback, who says, why? I'm going to score the goal. In football, if you've got 11 players who want to score a goal, nobody does. You must have seen that. Did you see Brazil at the last World Cup, did you? I hosted it, but I never saw them. Was Kaká playing?
Yes.
Was he? I don't know, I saw his name on the team list, but I never saw him play. Ronaldinho was supposed to be playing as well, but I never saw him play. I saw him on the team list. Did it look like any of them were playing? It seemed like a team of 11 individuals, right? Ronaldo has to score. It doesn't matter what else. Ronaldo has to score, right? So Ronaldinho is sitting there saying, look, I've been World Footballer of the Year twice, man. What's my job here? To ensure that Ronaldo scores. Why not me? Lone Rangers never exist. You've got to have a team. And that's why in the best of teams, the person who sets up a goal is regarded as highly as the person who scores it. See that French team? Who was the bulwark of that French team? Claude Makelele? Yeah, but Zidane liked to shove people around a little bit as well. He's used his head for the wrong reason sometimes. But you've got people who set up a goal. I mean, I hadn't done football before, and I was sitting in the CSPN studio doing football, and there were two people who played a lot of football alongside me, and we used to look at the French lineup, and Thierry Henry always plays as a lone striker for France. Occasionally, Louis Saha used to come on, but it didn't matter too much. Somebody watched the Football World Cup? I'm sure you did. Louis Saha has a great ability to pick up 2 yellow cards in 30 seconds. Doesn't he? So he used to come on. They had another forward called Sidney Govou. And I asked these experts, I said, why not David Trezeguet? Why isn't Trezeguet playing for France? He scored almost as many goals as Henry. And he said something that will remain with me for a long time. He said, you know that Trezeguet, he only wants to score his own goals. He's not worried about anyone else. He's a selfish so-and-so. He said, for every goal that Henry scores, he creates one for somebody else. And I think you'll find that with Ronaldinho as well. Creating goals for other people sometimes. Setting up a goal is as important as scoring it. And in good teams, you need people who set up the goal. Some of you follow cycling as well. The Tour de France is one of the most unbelievable human endurance races. And Lance Armstrong used to win it regularly for Team Discovery. But Armstrong never rode up front. If you're climbing up the Alps on a chilly morning with a cold breeze blowing at you, Armstrong was never riding first. Somebody else was. And Armstrong was riding the slipstream all the time. The others were setting it up for him. If it was a 220 kilometer day, for example, somebody would do 100 kilometers, someone else would come and do 60 kilometers, so that Armstrong was always fresh. He used to ride in the slipstream, the other guys are taking the brunt on themselves. If they turned around and said, listen, big deal, man, you're a champion, right? You ride up front, Armstrong would never have won. But it is in defining your role. Some people's role is defined as setting it up. They got fantastic contracts because they were setting it up for Armstrong to win. And that's how it works in all team sport, and that's how it works everywhere. That you'll have people who set up the goal and you'll have people who score it. But the importance of the person who sets up the goal is always regarded very highly. It's always thought of very highly. And networking, can we learn from each other all the time? There used to be days in the past when the batsman had a separate camp and the bowlers had a separate camp. Until someone discovered, hang on, if we know what a bowler doesn't like, then it's good for us as batsmen, right? So the bowler will tell the batsman, you know what, I like to bowl 4 balls, 5 balls, 6 balls straight at a particular batsman. The learning for the batsman there is, if I keep rotating the strike, I'm irritating the bowler. Or the learning for the fielder there is, listen, charge in that little bit more and prevent the single. Because if I prevent the single, I'm helping my bowler. Maybe I'm helping the bowler take a wicket. And that's why we say in limited overs cricket, fielders always take 2 wickets. You might have 5 bowlers, 6 bowlers, but 2 wickets always have to be taken by the fielder. So, networking crucial. Are we learning from each other? If you're a hardcore sales team, for example, a lot of you in sales here in this room? Hardcore frontline sales. Are we sharing knowledge? Are we sharing information? If we know something in our territory, are we telling someone else in another territory, you know what, this is what worked for me? Are we all sitting together and saying, you know what, I did better than you? Or are we all sitting together and saying, this is what worked for me, guys, this might work for you? That's what conferences are all about, that people across everywhere meet and share knowledge. Because if you don't share knowledge, if there's no networking within an organization, everyone's reinventing the wheel. If nobody tells you how to play a particular bowler, then each batsman is wasting his time learning it on his own. If there's networking, one guy knows how to play a particular bowler, he's sharing the information with everybody, it becomes easier for the whole team. So is there enough networking within the side, within the HSBC as well? There's differences as well, aren't there? I mean, there's some people who always worked in MNCs, there's some people who worked in local branches. The MNCs don't always understand what the local flavor is. The local people don't always understand the magnitude of those that think global. So are we sharing each other? Are the MNCs telling people what the global trends are? For example, I could be wrong, but this is what I believe could work. Are the local people saying this is what it is down at the ground, so you guys better learn? But the more you network, the more everybody learns. And that's why interdependence is everything in a team sport. And got that. You're in a team sport, aren't you? Everything in life is a team sport.